you. This is the first time I've attended this meeting. I've been wanting to attend it for a while, and my name is Heather, and I am an alcoholic. And I'm delighted to see people who I adore in here, and it's quite surprising that I landed in my first night on the night that Judy is speaking. And she's one of the people who I have come to dearly love in Alcoholics Anonymous. She was a gift of the pandemic for me.
I think we lost her. Well, I'm sure she's going to come back. And it's very strange timing, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and get started. So Judy has such an effect on people that their computer freezes up and signs off when they try to talk about her. So go ahead and take it away. You have the meeting.
Thanks, Chris. Will you remind me what time I'm supposed to be done?
Well, so we go until 9, and you can take as much or as little that time as you'd like. So it's really whatever you feel like as far as when you want to.
I have no idea what I feel like till I start talking about it. Let's see where it goes. Hello, Sarah. I'd love you all to join me in just a quick minute's prayer because my mind's scattered today and I'm trying to bring it all back into place. So help me focus. You are all friends of mine. Almost all of you are people I have known or been with. So please join me in asking God to show up and help me to do the best job I can. Thank you. I always get nervous before I talk. I'm Judy Lavezzi and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm from Westminster, Colorado, and I'm delighted to be here. You're my family. I know that every time I've been on this meeting, I see people I care about talking about things that I care about. And I don't know, is anybody here pretty new? Is anybody new? Would you raise your hand if you are? Great, thank you, Luis. Thank you. Then I want to talk to you. Everybody else knows everything. So here's some of my, there's some other friends. Sorry, Heather. So I just got back from a long vacation. It was a wonderful long vacation. It's one that I've wanted to do for a really long time. And I want to tell you a little bit about my struggle, which is where we started. I could start at the beginning with drinking, but let me just talk about this for a minute because it's on my mind. When I travel, I've always had a problem with meditation. And when I change my routine, I have a problem with my program. And I was in Italy for 6 weeks. It was a big birthday and it was a big vacation to celebrate that. And I don't have a problem without being at a meeting. We have Zoom and I can go to lots of meetings. But what I have a problem with is that when my routine gets changed, one of the things in my routine is my prayer and meditation. I don't forget it. I have yet to get drunk on a vacation ever. I never had one before I got sober. And it's a gift of sobriety that I've gotten to do a few things like that. My sobriety date, by the way, is August 17th, 1982. And sometimes sometimes I feel like I should be so much weller than I am. But I started, you know, I believe pretty deeply that instead of measuring where somebody is at, we really ought to be looking at how far they've come to get to wherever they're at. And in my case, I looked all right. I had a house, I had kids, didn't have a job, and most everything was kind of a fake. I was dancing as fast as I could. Pretty much incapable of holding my head up with the kids. I'm a bar drinker, which means I wasn't home much, which means I wasn't much of a mother, which means I wasn't much of anything worthwhile. And that's just kind of how we lived. Erratic and not very clean, and really with senses most time at night, waking up at 3 a.m, wishing that God would just, my prayer was that please let me not be here. Please let me go. And although I think violent thoughts, I'm not really a violent person. I'm more a rock thrower and then sneaky run away so you don't find out it was me kind of person. And so we're living this tawdry, dirty little life when quite by accident, I wind up over a period of time getting sober, and then over a longer period of time getting some sanity, and then over a longer period of time actually becoming a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and understanding it. At about 7 years, I began to understand what we were doing here. So I spent a lot of time being confused and trying my best to understand, but what I was doing was looking at you, comparing myself with you, analyzing you, looking at everything you did and trying to do some of the same stuff. I tried desperately to imitate everything you did. And I identified with people and their stories, no matter what their stories were. There was something about Alcoholics Anonymous. And as I got sober so slowly, I do think I had a lot of, like Bill said in that essay, which I adore, that I have had some spiritual growth. I don't want to discard any day of that. I have had spiritual growth as much as I could stand every single day of my sobriety, even the insane ones, or I wouldn't be here. I'm pretty sure of that. But I got here not understanding what alcoholism was. And I got here not really committing to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. I committed to myself that I was a problem drinker, which means I don't have to do the stuff you guys do the same way you guys do it, because I'm not quite one of you. Not quite, I'm close. And I identified, but not quite. So in the long closet of my brain, back there is a room that says, maybe someday later we can drink safely. I've noticed most of us have a little closet in the back that says, when X happens, I can drink, or when Y happens, it'll be okay. And in my case, it was someday later, I'll be able to control and enjoy my drinking, and I'll go back. And it was way back in the closet of my brain. And I didn't admit that to myself. I didn't know it existed. I wanted to change my life, but I didn't really want what you had regarding sobriety and sanity. I really identified with the sickest people in the meeting that we went to. There was a lot of boy-girling going on. There was a lot of silly stuff going on throughout my early sobriety. And I made lots and lots of decisions that maybe should have been made differently, but it's not the path I took. So I'd like to start this with, I stumbled into AA and my life has been different, and I had this amazing experience and nothing was ever the same. And it's kind of true, but it was slowly, one day at a time. We're talking about emotional sobriety, which I didn't have much of. I got here a single mom with 4 kids, definitely on poverty, getting food stamps. A big night out for us would have been trying to go to McDonald's. leaving me with frustration and tears because the kids would fight because they always fought. And I would feel like my big night out was ruined and I was trying to make memories. We were at McDonald's. And that's where I came into this program and you guys. The point of my telling you, you need to know where I came from. And then little by little, I began to unhook the other stuff. And it was really slow and it took a lot of time and it took a lot of unlearning. I didn't so much gain new ideas as I had to unlearn some of the ones that were automatic. So I married in sobriety. I found him in sobriety for you Al-Anons. And I made friends in sobriety, and gradually Alcoholics Anonymous became a functioning part of my everyday life. So I'm convinced that if I didn't have that life, I probably wouldn't be sober today. I don't think I could take like a patch, like I voted and say, oh, AA, and take it off and on. I don't think that's the way I work. I think for me, I have to work in being a member by being a member, being in, coming all the way in and sitting all the way down, because that's how I am. So anything else would not have worked for me, I'm pretty sure. But I continued to have problems with Judy. And that's really the point of this thing. He's not talking necessarily to the person that hasn't done an inventory. Our introduction kind of acknowledged that. You got to be working a program to be willing to see all that mess that we do, this insanity that we live in sometimes that comes out of nowhere. And I could tell you lots and lots of examples of it for me, and I may. But over a period of time, as life happened, I found that I didn't have the skills to cope with it. I was lacking those kinds of resilient responses to life that Bill is talking about. Now, Bill's sober kind of a long time when he does that. He's sober about 20 years when he finds he doesn't know beans and he hasn't grown enough. And that's, I think, an important thing to know. I've tried to recommend that letter, by the way, to lots of folks. And if you're not in the right place, it doesn't make sense to you. Try giving this to the sponsee at the wrong time. They'll go, I don't get it. So I think it's something that has a massive impact when you're in the place to hear it, when your life is maybe in a place to hear it, but that isn't every day. So I went looking to today, in fact, while I was thinking about emotional sobriety and trying to gather my thoughts, because after a trip, I always have a lot of problem with scattered thinking. It just takes a while for my brain to geographically come to where I live. And it was floating around. And so I did a little reading and on emotional sobriety as seen by others. And I would like to be rude enough to read you something from a psychiatrist or psychologist, I don't know, but an article in Psychology Today. It was an interesting article, and I'm not putting down anybody. But she said alcoholics uses spirituality as a defense. And it certainly looks a lot better than using drugs and alcohol, but it is a defense mechanism. And most people in recovery want the ability to access all of their feelings, because being present to what is real is what enables choices, and choices propel people toward their most authentic and fulfilling sober life. And I read that and I thought, what the heck does that mean? She's saying that a spiritual life is only a defense mechanism. And I wanted to read that because if that's a common thought about what it is we're talking about, I want to correct that. In my opinion, Judy Levezzi's opinion, emotional sobriety is about finding a way to live a spiritual, healthy, balanced life, an emotional life that accepts who we are, being true to who you are, not living in the past because we've made our amends, but living in the present where God is. That's the only place we can find God, is right here, right now. And seeing and accepting the flaws in everybody's makeup, and yet accepting that struggle and grief are part of life. That to me is what looks like emotional balance in my life. Knowing that stuff happens and being able to show up for it. That isn't where I came into this gig. This isn't where I came in at all. I came in blaming everybody else. And it took me a long time to find a way to realize by the time I was done with my first set of steps, that I had something to do with the problems in my life. People had always told me I was a certain kind of person. And I thought, how could they say that? Don't they know how hard I'm trying and what a victim I am? Why would people say I was antagonistic? Why would people say that I was rude? Why would people say that I said awful things when I'm just this really nice person trying to get by? And somewhere along the line, you guys taught me that it wasn't my intentions that they were measuring by, it was the things I said and the things I did. And they saw them differently than I did because I was running my life on fear. And it took me a really long time to get past a place where fear ran most of what I did. My reactions, when I'm frightened, I get angry, for example. So I spent a lot of time being afraid of losing my house, being afraid of losing my dignity, being afraid of never getting any dignity, being afraid of being a failure, being afraid of looking bad. I mean, so many fears that I had to discover through the 6th and 7th step. And I didn't discover it in the inventory in the fear column as much as I expanded on that and found that when I got to the 6th step and the 7th step, with about the second time I went in, I started realizing that most of my reactions to life and my reactions to the world have been because I'm afraid and I act badly. Maybe none of you do that, but that's what happens to me is I act badly when I'm frightened. I say things when I'm frightened and I find myself going, you did it again. You really did that again. I can't believe you did. So I'm having the conversation with myself that probably somebody would put me away for. Can't believe Judy did it again. You know, no matter what my intentions were. So I began to work really hard on my 6th step. And the reason this is so important to me is that I think emotional sobriety for me has come as the result of 4 steps. The first one, understanding that I was an alcoholic, happened by about 7 years. Not too quick, not too swift here. A little slow on the uptake. So 7 years, I figured out I was really an alcoholic. Really an alcoholic. I was a member and I made you guys my home and my spiritual family right then and there, once I understood that. And then I began to grow, but only after a first step and after a devastating 2nd step that finally took me down to realize how powerless I was. Didn't come easy and it came hard like all the steps have come for me. And by the time I get to a solid, constructive 6th step, I find that what happens for me is that I begin to confront the things I fear the most. That's how it worked out for me, is that I began to confront those things I was afraid of the most. And they're the big stuff that underlie lots of other things, like I can't get what I want. I am so unlucky. God really kind of cursed me. I can't ever have what I want. And if you really believe that, your reactions to life are never going to get anything you ever wanted because you believe that so deeply. I can't get what I want. I'll never get anyone who loves me really the way I need to be loved. I'll never be safe. I'll never be secure. I'll never be a part of anything. You know, all this isolation stuff begins to come to the surface. And for me, I had to make peace with each and every one of those, each and every one of those darn things had to come up to a place where I could look it in the eye and say, and so what? And so what? Can I survive this life with God's help if all of that happened, the worst that I imagined? And when I did, I began to lose my fear. And I finally began to read differently where it says all men of faith have courage, because I knew that no matter what, if I had this kind of faith and there would be a higher power who would be there, that would be there for me to help me through those hard times when I feel as though the world has failed me or I have failed the world and there's nothing left. In those times when I've been abandoned or feel like I have, all those times, if I have a higher power, I can look that in the eye and go, this is going to hurt. I know this is going to hurt and it's going to have grief. And I'm going to take it to a meeting and my sponsees, and I'm going to bleed for a while. And I know I'm going to be okay. And I know I'm going to come out the other side of this. And that has been like a driving force ever since, is to realize how many times that higher power I didn't believe in has been right there with me as I struggled with each and every one of those deep rooted fears. You've probably got some of your own. Most of us have. I'm not enough. There's something wrong. Deeper than they didn't invite me to the party, right? The ones beneath that. You know, my hair isn't curly, or my hair is too curly, or whatever, those kinds of things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the deep ones that indicate all the things I have depended on that Bill was talking about, all the things that I've depended on to make me me. That when those are taken away, who am I? So if I'm not my family and I'm not my education and I'm not my religion and I'm not my job and I wasn't invited to the party and my hair is too curly or I go bald or whatever, all those things that I think make me me, when those are removed, do I still have a higher power? Do I still have a purpose? Do I still have a meaning in this life? And for me, that was really the most powerful thing and gift that you guys gave me, was that you gave me purpose and you gave me meaning. So I've had to look at each one of those things independently and each one individually and make a decision about, am I going to trust the higher power that I found here to get me through the hard things so that I can then show up for the other stuff? And I didn't know how that was going to go, but after a lot of tears on each and every one, because I don't surrender very easily. I surrender when I've run out of physical, emotional, and mental energy. And until I'm absolutely knocked flat without an ounce of energy to fight something, then I give up, but not until. So it's been the way it has been for me. And somewhere along the line, it began to be a working part of how my life goes, most of it. And I'm down to, there's a few things that still bother me. There's a few things that run through my life. So I was telling you at the beginning of this, and then I got sideways. I went on this long trip and I don't have many meetings. I'm not around people who know me. It's an ideal time. And I had, for the first time in maybe 20 years, I heard myself say, you know, you could have a glass of wine. I'm 39 years sober. Who said that? You could have a glass of wine. So what happened is the solution for alcoholism for me and for many like me did not even come in the form of meetings. It didn't come in the form of reading the big book to another woman, which is how I sponsor people. But that isn't where I found it this time. I had a sponsee who was facing a life and death case of COVID while pregnant. And she wound up in the hospital on a ventilator for over 30 days of my trip. I could not go see her. She was in isolation. I could not call her. I could not send a card. I could not do anything because I wanted, you know how it is when somebody you care about has a problem, you want to actually do something. I want to take my two hands and do something. And my hands were out till vacation. So I did what it is I say to do. And I did this time in a more active form. I was in Italy, which has a church. Every other house has a church, right? I mean, like thousands of churches everywhere. And we got in the habit, I was there with some of my family, and I started going in and lighting a candle to pray. And my family started coming in to light the candle for my friend as well. We had this whole troop of us going into every church we could pass by on our way to gelato, coming back from lunch, going for a stroll, whatever we were doing. If there was a church and we passed it, we went in and lit a candle and sat down and said prayers. Because she was dying almost every other day. They did not know she had lung collapse and blood clots and all kinds of stuff. And it was a really terrible time. She was unconscious for over a month and knocked out. And they would not, they wouldn't make any statement whether or not she was even going to come out of it alive. And so what happened was the gift that I got was that the routine that I had to leave when I left for my vacation became a new routine, not thinking about me, but thinking and praying about my friend. And I want to tell you that that is, I think, the protection of that whole trip came about because I got to pray for her. I still have a question whether electric lights are as good as candles, but that's another issue. But it didn't matter because the thing was that my voice was headed up to the Creator, reminding that Creator that there's some unfinished business here. And then praying to accept however it worked out. I mean, both things at the same time. It was really a kind of a tricky little spot to do, trying to pray and trying to accept however that was going to turn out at the same time. And because I did it so often, it became my new routine. My routine on vacation, which is always thrown aside, became my new routine on vacation to stop and pray. And I've been praying. And then when she finally turned a corner just before we came home, I found I owed a debt. So I started praying Thanksgivings and in gratitude, the same way that I was praying for her to, if possible, to live. So I just wanted to tell you that I don't think time has anything to do with some issues in life. I think you can be sober and be dry as a stick and not have any sense of sobriety being a living and vital thing inside your heart. What we get here and what the people on this particular meeting tend to have is an excitement and a trust in a living thing in the program, because we live in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't take it on, take it off like an old jacket. We actually live in this thing. And because of that, life becomes a really different thing. So that's kind of my current stuff with how has that affected me and what did it do? That was it. And it was a big deal to me, and it stays a big deal. I was able to go to my home group and able to pray for my friend who is currently in rehab. She's doing wonderfully after all of that. And pretty soon she'll be able to hold her baby that she didn't even know she'd been delivered of while she was in a coma. So it's a wonderful thing, and we're all at peace with just being alive and being at peace. I think coming that close to death really changes who we are. And I'm grateful that I got to be a participant in that chain that felt so significant in somebody's life. So emotional sobriety, what happens with it? I'm married, and I'm a family kind of person. Some of you might be, some people don't have families, but I do, and it's how I live. And so life has been kind of crazy sometimes. I've talked about that a lot. I believed when I got here that I was in love and that love would conquer all, because we were going to put God before everything else. And to some extent, that's true. We've always put the program with an understanding. We've never had to fight for going to meetings, or can I have the time that I need, or will you respect and honor my commitments? We've never had that kind of argument that some people do. But it took us about 15 years to, I think, let down our guard and discover new dependencies had cropped up. I had become dependent on him in some ways, and he on me, and we had begun to build resentments. And our marriage began to go from this perfect, wonderful, blissful thing, which was unrealistic, but I was dependent on that. Love his talk about dependencies. I find I'm a dependent person on everything. I'm dependent on my house. I like to know that my mailman is the same mailman I've got every single day. And I don't like to move and not know my mailman. I like my hygienist to stay the same. I don't go dancing around with different hygienists. I'm one of those really routine kind of people that likes people to stay where they're supposed to stay and do what they're supposed to do. So when change happens, it's really kind of powerful for me, and it's difficult. And our marriage had begun to change. And life has changed in many ways, but marriage had begun to change. We were sober. We were married about 15 years. We've been married now about 30 something. And we were married about 15 years. And we started really resenting each other. And my response over a long period of time was to get resentful and have late night arguments with some people that were living in my head. And they were on the back sofa, and they'd be talking so loud they'd wake me up, and I'd wake up angry, and we're going to have this, and here's what I need to do, and here's how I take care of myself, and had all this crazy stuff going on. And I decided that I couldn't divorce him because my children loved him. And so I started Googling how long it takes to smother somebody with a pillow, to see if I could possibly get out of the marriage one way or another and not be going to jail and not have to tell the kids that I was divorcing their stepfather. And it was pretty serious at the time, until I realized it isn't going to work. He's too big a guy for me to hold the pillow over him long enough. But he's kind of proud of it. He said, I'm the only man he's ever tried to kill. So, it took us a lot of program and a lot of sponsorship and a lot of work to get to the other side of that. And I would say maybe 2 years before we could discover the humor in our marriage again. And the first time that happened, I thought, oh, we're going to be okay. There's some humor here. We're finding our way, finally. And I think, God takes care of alcoholics and fools if you just hang in there and try to make stuff, do the best you can, be as honorable as you can. We never, either one of us, ever prayed and found out that God was telling us we should get divorced. Or I know we'd both be divorced a couple of times now. But that never felt like it was the message, the intuitive message either one of us got. But I became dependent. I would look at him and decide how I felt, right? He'd look unhappy and I'd decide to respond to that. And And so as a couple in sobriety with some time and years spent working with this, we have some autonomy that the traditions gave us. And I want to give a plug to traditions in relationships because they told me that I should have some autonomy. The traditions told me I should be self-supporting. The traditions talked to me about things like that. How am I self-supporting in physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually? You know, how am I self-supporting in those ways? How do we depend on each other and yet maintain some autonomy? And it's the same rules that apply to groups if we're going to have healthy groups. So I've used the traditions a lot with the basis that for the first time in my life, it occurred to me that what might be important was this idea of unity. Now, I'm a bar drinker. Unity in my marriage was never an issue in the first marriage. I made a lot of decisions that were, let's just say, would have been challenging for anybody to find any unity. But this time around, I began to realize that some of my decisions were really destructive. Some of the ways I acted, like not coming home, were destructive to making something that was healthy and whole. So I determined that no matter how bad it got, this was early on though, no matter how bad it got, I wasn't going to put another guy in the marriage. I wasn't going to put anybody else into it to divert me. I was going to stay with this thing no matter what. And I did, with a slight detour into murder, but otherwise it was pretty clear to me that God always wanted us to be together. And I've never gotten the message that I shouldn't be. Never once in all the times I prayed, no matter how awful I felt. So if you can't change something, what do you do with it? You have to take it to God because there's not much else you can do. You get to change yourself if you can. How much power do I have to change me? Not even a lot sometimes. You know, I can change. I look around and I think, what can I change? Well, I can change where I put my feet, but not much else. I can change the things I say. I can be less rude. I can try to remember to include other people in the conversations I'm having. But still, I don't have the power to change me completely. What you guys give me is a sense of how can I make it different? And we talk together and I see things with a different light. And I see things from other people's eyes and other people's points of view. And what's happened is that you've given me optimism. I see love in your face and I think, oh, maybe I'm lovable. Don't miss that with other people. Don't miss that. I'm not a depressive, but I have been depressed. You know, there's a lot, that's not mine, but that doesn't mean any one of us doesn't have periods of time where you feel as though there's nowhere to go and there's nowhere else to go and there's nobody to go to. And yet we are a program that is a living fellowship of linking arms, one person with another. And I am convinced that's the reason my friend was so important on my trip, is that it is the fellowship and working with another in whatever way you can that is where we find our connection sometimes to the higher power. It was so long ago that Bill and Bob were the only two there. There weren't any meetings. There wasn't any Zoom. There wasn't any central offices, intergroup conventions or assemblies. All there was two guys desperately trying to stay sober together and doing if not a bang up job, they were doing the best they could at the moment and trying to move on to the next step in life where they could maybe pass the message on to somebody else. And when I read it carefully, what I see is that they had a third guy, Bill Dotson, right away, right? Bill, Bob, and Bill. And then it took them about a year to find number 4. Meantime, they're being rejected. It's like the Fuller brush salesman. They're being rejected by everybody they're talking to Maybe an encyclopedia salesman would be better than the Fuller Brush. I'd like the Fuller Brush guy. And so meanwhile, they're facing rejection. They don't even live near each other. And all they can do is try really hard to find a way to reach out to another alcoholic, because in that is the magic connection to a higher power. And I think we forget that sometimes. I think we get so involved in the organization of us that we forget that the organization is there to support our doing what only we can do, which is one person talking to another. And in there, I am healed. And in there, I find the higher power that will heal me emotionally. And I can't even, Bill talks about it so eloquently, I can't even depend on that to make me feel good. I can't depend on their sobriety to make me feel good. I have to do it because that's what I do. You know, just for its own sake. Have you ever wondered about that part that said we seek humility for its own sake? Rarely have we done that, something like that. And I think, who wants to seek humility for its own sake? Well, we do. We do. That's the place we go to next, is that finding that humility that says, I don't care if you don't accept this. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means that I've done what I'm supposed to do. I've tried to bring you the message of hope and faith in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'll walk with you at your side as long as you like. And that's a different commitment, but that's the one around which Alcoholics Anonymous grew. And that's the one around which eventually I think God works on us. We stay busy until God can do something with our sorry butts. You know, we just do the best we can to reach out, each person reaching out to the person in front of them. And I think that's the vision Bill had. Ranks of people reaching out to others, not meetings. I don't know that they had such a big vision about, you know, smokers meetings, non-smokers meeting, masked meetings, non-masked meetings, motorcycle meetings, women's meetings, boys meetings, girls meetings, all of the differences that we have begun to do, specialized group meetings. What Bill was trying to do was reach people, period. And in doing that, save himself. And in time, that connection to the spiritual aspect of the program, it isn't a religious aspect that he's talking about there. It's the spiritual work of reaching another person, just caring about their well-being, period. We just do it because we want to do something good for them. Get out of my own selfish, self-centered, stingy mind and do something different. And because of that, I get closer to a higher power. I have no idea why that works. All I know is that this last vacation was really clear to me that my sick friend was saving my life. And I didn't know it till it was almost over. And I began to realize what an impact that it had on me to keep me safe during the time that I was gone, untethered, in unfamiliar places, with no meetings nearby, with a whole lot of wine. And I'm in lighting my candles. So I do think that we have opportunities when we're willing to take them and we're willing to see them. And like everybody else, I wish I were a better person to do that. I wish I were better when the phone rang at 4 a.m, which it doesn't very often. Kind of makes me sad. I'd like to feel really effective. I could call you all and say, I had this terrible phone call at 4 a.m. Poor me. You know, I'd feel pretty good about that, but I haven't had one in a really long time. So there's a whole lot of drunks out there that need us. And they're not the ones that are smelling good because they're sitting in some luxury place. It's the ones that don't look so appealing, I think. I suspect that it's the ones that are getting out of prison and the ones that are getting into prison and the ones that are in homeless shelters that need us the most. And those are the ones that we're most scared of. So it's just a thought. How can we best be effective and find the God of our understanding in the other person standing in front of us? And I need that reminder for me to go out of my way, because there is nothing in AA that is convenient. We are a program built on inconvenience, and certainly that's the one thing that I want least in life, is to be inconvenienced. I would like to sit on my little throne and feel like I had, I got it. I did it. I'm done. But that's not the way it works. So as long as you'll have me, I'll be around, and I'll be drawing on you for inspiration, and I'll be drawing on you for the things that matter most in life, because that's where I've gotten everything, has been through you. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much for that, Judy. The way we usually do this is if you'd like to call on some folks, people can raise their hands, but also if there's some people that you'd like to call on for the first few shares, you're welcome to do so.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I always want to apologize when I get done. I think I had an idea of what I was going to say, and not one of those things happened. So I apologize, but it's what we got. We prayed first. It's God's fault. If you didn't get what you want, please go wait for the next speaker. I'm sure they will have a better understanding of how to do this thing. Thanks. So, well, who would I want to call on? I want to call on Sarah, and then Nancy, and then Heather. And then Veronica, she smiled at me through the whole meeting. And then John. And then go, Sarah.
Is it me?
Yes.
Oh, there's a couple of Sarahs on here. Sorry. Hi,
Well, I'm
everyone.
going to
I'm
call
Sarah.
on you both eventually.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm an alcoholic. Judy, thank you so much. I miss you. Oh my God, I miss you, and I love you. And thank you so much. It was the exact message I needed to hear tonight. I just kissed my husband goodbye before I put him in an ambulance and sent him off to the hospital.
Oh,
Sarah. This is usually my second or third meeting on a Thursday night. And tonight I rushed home, and after sending him off to another hospital, this is my first meeting tonight. So, but it's okay. I mean, he's where he needs to be. I had to take him to the emergency room last night, and he's got what's called hepatic encephalopathy. His liver's not working well, and so he's got some things going on. And he fell down the stairs last night, and I took him to the emergency room, and he insisted that he was okay to go home. And they said, yeah, he can go home. He's fine. He's fine. He's fine. And I couldn't even get him in the front door. And when I finally did get him in the front door, he went down, and I could not get him up or out or anything. And I had to call the ambulance to come and take him back to the hospital. So then today, in our little small town, they don't have a hospital that, they don't have the capability of caring for him. So they have sent him off to a hospital where they do have the capability of caring for him. So I'm grateful for that. There was so many things that it was like you might have been speaking right to my story right now, because I needed every word you said, Judy, every word of it. I kept thinking that, one of the things you said earlier was about helping others, and that we're not a failure if they don't get it. But something that came up to me recently was that there's a woman I started to sponsor, and she wasn't getting it. And somebody said, somebody asked me, when do you give up on somebody like that? And I said, you don't. And they said, what do you mean you don't give up on them? And I said, well, because if we're going to tell them not to quit 5 minutes before their miracle happens, who the hell are we to quit 5 minutes before their miracle happens, So I didn't. And then, to another gal that I've been working with lately, I got a call to call her, or got her phone number, was texted her phone number. I mean, and I did. And I kept saying, oh God, I really don't want to go out and see this person. She lives in a group home. I don't want to go to a group home. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go out on a Monday night and do that. You know, I've got things to do on a Monday night. I didn't want to do that. And I was being, you know, all in self and everything like that. And, but I knew in my heart that I had to do, you know, that's what God put in front of me at that moment to do. So I had to get out of myself. And I went and picked this woman up and took her to a meeting, the only meeting that was open at that night. And one that is not a really healthy meeting for me from way back. So I've had some bad experiences with it, but I took her to that meeting and she got what she needed there. And I also got surprised. And I'm still working with that woman and still being very surprised by her. I'm very grateful that God chose me to put her in my life, you know. It all has to come to a point where I can look at it in the eye, like you said. And I've been going on with some stuff. The health problems with my husband have been going on for a while. You know, they kind of came to a head in the last couple of days, and it's pretty scary. But I have a level of acceptance that I never dreamed it was possible, and you all give that to me. And Judy, it's people like you that I have listened to for many years and heard for many years and known for a long time that I think of when I need that extra boost of, you know, of God power or angel power, whatever you want to call it, that extra courage that we need to get through things. So you know, whatever's happening right now is I'm scared, but I have faith. And although I may be in the middle of the trees right now and at the middle of the forest and seeing only the trees right now, I know that all I have to do is raise myself up just a little bit and I can see the whole forest. And I know that at some point I will come out the other side, no matter what happens. And it may not be the way I want it to be, but it's going to be what it is. And I will be okay. I will be okay because you guys make that possible for me. And because I've learned to kind of get rid of some of those unhealthy dependencies and to rely on my higher power. And I used to say that God doesn't give us more than we can handle. You know, I wish he wouldn't trust me so much, but I have since discovered that when I say things like that, it's not that God trusts me too much. It's that I don't trust myself enough and I don't trust him enough. And so like, if I just turn that around, God doesn't give me more than I can handle if I rely on him. And so here I am handling, and thank you. Thank you again.
Thanks, Sarah. Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic. I'm so glad I caught you tonight, Judy. That was exactly what I needed to hear. I got a text that you were speaking tonight a couple minutes late, and I, right before I got on this call for the last couple of hours, my thought had been, I have this tremendous fear that I cannot survive certain things happening. And I didn't know where to go with that fear. And I heard you say exactly what I needed to hear, is I even take that fear to God, even though that idea of taking that fear to God is scary, because there's something safe in holding on, even if it's holding on to things that aren't healthy or work for me. The other thing that really struck me was thinking about routine. You know, I recently moved about, 6 weeks ago, I think, and nothing is settled. Everything is in boxes or in warehouses, or everything is up in the air and nothing feels real and nothing feels concrete. And so when that happens, you know, I'm reminded of going back to those real basics of first things first, just do the next right thing. And I just really love that idea of being able to light candles or to go to some place that's sacred to me, just for that idea of getting back to that me that isn't defined by my house or my belongings or my family, getting back to that spirit, that's me. So thanks everybody for being here tonight. And that's really all I have.
Thanks, Nancy. Veronica.
Hi, Judy. Thank you so much. Hang on, I just got to find you. Oh, there you are. Okay. I just loved everything that you shared tonight, and I relate to all of it, including the escape and relief by murder. And it's that made me laugh out loud. I think that's really funny. I think it's what I found myself thinking about, there was a couple of things that really, probably the biggest thing that landed for me tonight is when you were talking about, coming all the way in and sitting all the way down. And I don't know why today I've just realized that I've not really come all the way in and sat all the way down. And there's a lot of escape clauses there. That little closet in the background, that just, I know I'm alcoholic. I know drinking is not even close to a good solution for me, but it's there I don't know, it's a little bit like, I remember it was about a year ago having a conversation with somebody in program, and I don't know how the subject of suicide came up, but when suicide was really off the table, and I've been ever present of that ever since. It's much like that drinking. Is it really off the table? Is it really off the table as an escape clause, as an easier, softer way? So I think that I love that nothing in AA is convenient. I think I really liked hearing that tonight. I think that, and I don't know why this might sound really odd, because I'm listening to you talk and I relate to everything very personally. It really resonated with me. And I could feel this overwhelming feeling of being proud. And I know this sounds corny, because you got 39 years and I'm like little pipsqueak that's almost got 5 years. And I just feel so proud of you, just listening to the way you talked about parts of your journey. It's that's the only words I can come up with. It's really extraordinary to have heard what you said tonight. Back to that, the little closet in the background, and, is suicide really off the table? And I don't think I'm a suicidal person, but I'll be surprised if I am, but I don't think so. But, that there really is nowhere left to go but to go to God. There's nowhere else. That's it. And I can do program, and I can do whatever it is that I'm trying to do in my life, in my world, and there's just nowhere left to go but to go to God. And that's what I was thinking, listening to you the entire time. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure hearing you tonight.
Thanks, Veronica. Miss Heather.
Thanks, Judy. I am so sorry. My internet booted me right out and I couldn't get back in to introduce you. I loved what you had to share tonight, as I always do. And I love the honesty. And also what I heard was the beauty of the simple tools in AA and in doing the work and being a part of, instead of being apart from. And for me, I've always felt that sense of a higher purpose and being a part of something really big since I got into AA and since I got connected to AA, and more recently in recent years when I really reconnected and started diving deeper into AA. And you've been a really important part of that for me, and I want you to know that. I've been through some big stuff recently, and I really heard what I needed to hear from you tonight. You know, I'm doing some things with this relationship of many years. You know, we've grown up together in AA. I picked him out of the herd when I had all of 4 months of sobriety, and we've been together ever since. And we've done it our way. And lately things seem to be going in different directions for us. And I realized that I've never done this before. Well, I never did a sober relationship, and I've only learned as I've gone along. I've never done a sober moving in different directions from a relationship, and I'm just willing to let that unfold as it's going to unfold, and it may not unfold in that way, and that's what's surprising. And it is hard to not want to get in the middle of that and make things happen. And I really heard from you when I needed to hear on that end tonight. So thank you so much for that. And also the simple beauty of being a part of something bigger. You know, I'm on the PI committee here, and I do the little tiny town of Palisade and go and bring literature out to all these little places. And today I went into the police station, and it's the first time I've gone in there with the literature. And the lady behind the desk was overjoyed. I am telling you, she was thrilled.
Wow.
That somebody from our organization came in there with literature and said, we are here and we want to pass this on to the officers. And I said, I'll be back, you know, here's my name, you know, and you can count on me. And she was thrilled. She said, thank you so much. I mean, she was just over the moon. What a thing.
Love that.
What a gift. And then here's another one. The other day I was working with a gal who has suffered from chronic depression her whole life. And she's got a couple of years of sobriety, and this just keeps coming up. She is not getting the treatment she needs from outside help. It's just not working for her. And we were talking about what's next and solution and who to turn to next. And a name of a lady in the program came up in my head in that moment. It had to be higher power. And that lady is so busy, you can never get her when you call her. She is just never available. It's always, she'll call you later. She answered in that moment, right there when I was having that meeting. And she said exactly what the gal I was working with needed to hear in that moment, and got her hooked in, got her connected, got her some help. I mean, this program is amazing. Spirit is always there. And all I have to do is open my eyes and look. And I heard that tonight, Judy. Thank you so much. I love you so much.
Thanks, Heather. Love you too. There's several people I would want to call on, but it occurred to me that I should get off this podium and let whoever wants to speak, speak. Thank you very much. Who would like to speak?
Sometimes you got to just keep calling on people.
Yeah, I can do that. John, speak up.
Hey there, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
Thank you very much, Judy. I always love hearing from my future oracle. I call her. We have a little joke. And we do have one thing in common. I told my dentist last week that if my hygienist goes somewhere, he's dead to me. I'm out of here.
I love it.
So thank you for your share. I've been on a little bit of a life trip myself the last week and a half, and it started out for 2 weeks last Saturday, and I met all my old friends from the University of Denver, and we went to the Grateful Dead show. There was like 25 of us. I hadn't seen each other in a long time, and then I flew back east, and I was asked to speak at my former high school's to the student body about my story. And I told it, and I slimmed it down from the AA, but the first question I got was, are you going to get in trouble for telling that story? And, but I know that I was able to touch some kids there, but I also got to go back there and make some amends to myself. And I had spoken a lot about what personas I had to turn on to be able to survive in that environment. And the couple of personas, more than a couple, I had to run just to run my life, you know, and they still crop up from time to time. And sometimes I let them hang out, and sometimes I ask God to kick them out, you know, but they're fun to play with sometimes, you know. But, you know, they also, if I let them play too long, they'll keep me up all night. And I'll ask myself, you know, where have I gone wrong? And then it's like, John, this is going to take more than one night to figure this out. So, you know, I'll sit and I'll journal or something for a few minutes until I don't like journaling. So that puts me right back to sleep real fast, you know. And then I got to, this is really special to me. I was awarded the Philanthropist of the Year by the Colorado Restaurant Association this week for my work with Chow. And I got both my parents to be there, and they hadn't been in the same room for a really long time. And so I had this whole week and hanging out with God and hanging out with all my old personas and, you know, really getting another glimpse of who I am and saying, I have a real problem with getting abundance and telling people that I'm a nice guy or whatever. And I'm going to start accepting that. You know, I didn't realize how much, you know, somebody would give me a compliment and I'm quick to reply and cut myself down in some way, you know, and it's dawning on me when I do that, I'm insulting that person. So I'm really going to keep an eye out on that. But, you know, I'm really grateful to be here tonight. And I love you, Judy. And thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Miss Beth, would you speak to us?
Hi, Judy. My name is Beth. I'm an alcoholic. I'm so grateful that I got on the meeting tonight and listened to you. Yeah, I've enjoyed everything you shared. I definitely am grateful that my sponsor took me through the traditions as being in a couple in AA, you know, in that she took us through the traditions, her and Dave, and that has been big, you know. And then the last part of like people getting out of prison, going into prisons, homeless shelters. I worked with people from the Denver homeless shelter, and also you know, I struggled with my son, and he was doing good for a while, and he relapsed, and it's heartbreaking, you know. But you know what you and Jeannie have taught me, you know, is to love unconditionally, you know, and just be that example, you know, because all I continue to do is seek. I seek, and I you know, I'm always willing, you know, and yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, that's why I come to this meeting about emotional sobriety. You know, I liked what you shared about, you know, our fears and facing them, and mainly, you know, we turn to this power that helps us walk through all of that, facing it even, you know. I'm extremely grateful for that. But I'm just really glad to be here and to have been able to hear your message tonight. And we'll keep reaching out to the people that aren't, you know, privileged and entitled, and you know, are out there. And I guess that's why I worked in detox for so many years, right? But I love you, and I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
We actually
Blessings
got a
to you.
raised hand.
Ooh, Danny.
Yeah, hi, I'm Danny and I'm an alcoholic,
Hi,
ringing
Danny.
in from, calling in from Bali, Indonesia.
Woohoo!
And I'll be in Colorado actually in a couple of weeks. And I'm sure we've got a lot of mutual friends. You may even know my sister Lucy in the fellowship there.
Where-
I'm sorry.
No, I'm shutting up.
So I just loved, I'm not good at repeating things, but where Bill Wilson really wanted us to go and connecting with another person. I've just had the privilege really of being on a difficult travel with a filmmaker into the indigenous parts of Indonesia, on the island of Borneo, spending time with the Dayak tribes. And the penny really dropped. The connectivity that these naturally have with each other. They naturally go and pick things from their farm. They naturally cook together. They naturally, it's so heartwarming. And I think one of the reasons why I feel just on another planet after I've gone out of my way, or not even gone out, after I spent some time helping someone in Alcoholics Anonymous, whether they get it or not, and in my case, more often they don't, but that being helpful through my experience, and here's what I did, or here's what, not my opinion, none of that. I think it's because that's our natural state, to be of service to another one of God's kids. And I'm going to assume all of us on this call, we're not naturally there. It's not in my DNA to go out of my way and help someone. When I'm in the deal, when I'm really connected, it is my natural state to wait for a second and just smile to somebody, to wait for a second and just hold the door, to wait for a second and let somebody else just go in who maybe, I'm in the airport yesterday and it happened, they just go right. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to miss the plane. Where do I have to go? They're obviously a little bit distraught right now, but I don't naturally recognize that.
Yeah.
I only recognize that when I'm connected through Alcoholics Anonymous and through this practice. You mentioned a lot about the sixth step, and I'm struggling with something on the sixth step, which I'll be perfectly honest with you. The Dayak women the people in general are just unbelievably physically beautiful. And I find myself drifting, and my wife and I are going to be 22 years married here shortly, deeply in love with my wife. And so what's that all about? And so ring up and speak to the sponsor and says, let's have a meeting on the sixth step of the stuff that we know full well God is going to take from me. But we don't want to ask. I don't want to ask. I don't want to believe that I'm going to be brought to a different and better place. Seriously? I'm getting a little juice over here. This is pretty cool, But then that inner turmoil that somebody just mentioned, being up at 3 a.m, having to, So again, it was so poignant for me to be for a week where this is just natural. This is what God wants, and it's a natural state. What happened? What happened? And by the way, there was a lot of drinking. A lot of the guys drink, and there was some serious drinking going on. But I don't know if alcohol takes us away from that natural state, or just my unrelentless, rapacious need to be selfish. So yeah, great. I really enjoyed your, and I think we're going to hook up, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we've already met over the years. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Cheers.
Thank you, Danny. Miss Sarah from Boulder.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Sarah.
I have to say, I was sitting here and thinking most of the evening, thank you so much for your talk, Judy. It was really helpful. And having gotten sober in Boulder AA, there are a few voices that are a comfort to me, and you're one of them. Just the sound of your voice, because I've been listening to it for 20-something years, and I appreciate both you and Lou. You know, we get to know one another that way, and that's a really cool thing. And I don't think I've ever said that to you, but there it is. So I was thinking today, I had this, I've been looking for a job. I've been doing some job interviews, and I didn't get a job today that I wanted. And my head did a story about that, about what that meant. And you know, most of all, what I love about AA is, you know, the best part of my day was talking to somebody who was a newcomer on the phone, you know, because it was this opportunity to step away. And I did my 10 step about the dishonesty that it means that I'm not capable, and, you know, all the things like not wanting to play the role I'm assigned, and, you know, all that stuff. But it's amazing to me. That's what I heard you talk about most of all, is like this idea that when we can step out of ourselves, it's always the solution, even when I often don't want it to be. Like, I just don't. I'd much rather sit and stew or whatever, you know, or focus on myself. And it's never the solution. And it's the same solution, you know, and that's amazing, I think, more than anything. But, you know, and so it goes, right?
And so it goes.
So it goes. And my meditation for a while now has really been very clear about just playing the role I'm assigned, like just play the role you've been assigned. And so I think this trusting God thing, it's not for sissies some days, but it is the solution. So with that, I'll pass, and thank you again.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right.
Jeff,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I think we're winding down here, but I think we can probably fit one more in.
yeah, Jeff, wind us down.
Okay, you woke me up. Hi, Judy.
Hey, Jeff.
It has been too long. I'm so glad I got on here tonight. We had an interesting meeting the other night, and it brought me into the topic of emotional sobriety and where are we at with this time, you know, and do I take my dry time, my spiritual development for granted? And we had a newcomer. Well, not really. Was not a newcomer. We had a drunk girl with 2 black eyes, you know, and took about a half an hour of the meeting, was about all she could take. And I don't know why that was all she could take. Wasn't her first tour. And there I was, missing that contact with a newcomer. Missing and remembering what my emotional state was like then, when I would come home and feel so horribly inadequate. Judy, you talked about the foundational fear. Our foundational fear, Bob O and Gary B have talked to me and Tom about that a lot, where it doesn't make any difference. Yeah, we can talk about not getting invited to the party, and, you know, the boss didn't say hi to me, and I didn't get a raise, and it's all about me, and the prom queen went out with somebody else. Actually, she didn't, but whatever. And the reality is, I just don't think I didn't get the card. I don't know how this works. You know, I'd come home and not understand, what am I supposed to do now? I have a wife and a child. I don't know how this works. And with Alcoholics Anonymous today, now I have a wife and grandchildren and all kinds of things like that. But my ability today to show up for a job, well, past tense, I'm retired, to show up where I'm supposed to be, to make a commitment to you and Alcoholics Anonymous, to make a commitment to the outside world. Yes, I will come and volunteer on your committee. John, I'm so excited for you and your philanthropic stuff. You know, and I do some stuff in the community with community theater and different things I've served on. And I can take these roles and I can show up for them and I can participate and not be afraid that I won't be enough. And that is the piece for me that makes it possible for me to reach out to that drunk girl, to reach out to that, you know, we all have them. The call I've been waiting for. And we take the call and we let God drive what we say. And then they don't call again. But it's not about me. I did what I could at that time. And without some work done, without some progress on emotional sobriety, it's one of those things I never arrive at, you know. Maturity and emotional sobriety. I am someplace between halfway normal and a basket case, and you know, that's as good as it gets. And I haven't been on this meeting in a while, and I saw that you were speaking tonight, and I said, "Oh, I got to hear what Judy has to say." So I remain Jeff, an alcoholic, a seasoned beginner, and one that is so grateful that you people not only asked me to come back, you let me stay. Peace.
Thank you, Jeff. Chris, it's back to you.
All right. Well, we are out of time. Thank you again, Judy. And thank you to everyone who shared. The way we close this meeting typically is for everyone to just keep yourself muted, and we'll just go to our inner room and say the Lord's Prayer. For those who care to join, just quietly to ourselves. All right. Thank you again, Judy.
Thank you all. Great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Great meeting.
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks
Judy.
again,
Thanks,
Judy.
Judy. All those that shared,
Thanks,
and thank you
Judy.
for
Thank you, everybody.